So normally on this channel, I go over charts that sort of subtly imply that we're living in the end times, that, you know, things are coming to a close for us, a withering close. But today, I thought we'd think about something lighter that doesn't have to do with any of that. So it's the polyamory chart, explaining all different forms of non-monogamy. And this isn't my chart. It was created by Franklin Vinot of ZeroMag.com. I'll put a link in the description. So for open relationship, the example is we can have sex with other people as long as it's just sex, no love. That's what an open relationship is, right? You got your main squeeze, who you're in love with, but you can go and have sex with other people. As long as you don't get attached, as long as there's no love involved and it's purely a sexual thing, which is a thing that happens between human beings, where you just have sex with each other and you don't feel anything about it. Now, as you can see, there's lots of overlaps between different styles of non-monogamy, so we're going to go over these different overlaps. So as you can see on the left here, we have commerce. This is the forms of non-monogamy that involve prostitution. The overlap between open relationships and commerce is my boyfriend digs that I'm an escort. So in this world, you're in an open relationship with a chick, and she's a prostitute, and she's fucking guys on the side, and you like that. You know, that's kind of a situation that works for you. Or at least you say you like it. You know, you basically, the ethical non-monogamist shows up with like these forms, and you sign the form. And you think, well, I signed the form, so I must like it. That's how it works, right? Moving on to just commerce, the example we have here is sometimes we hire a partner for threesomes. Technically non-monogamy because there's a third person involved there, but it's someone you pay for and it's not associated with any of these other categories. I mean, unless you fall in love with them, I guess. Moving on to straight-up polyamorous relationships, they're different from open relationships because in an open relationship, you're only supposed to be loving your primary partner and then just having sex with other people. In a polyamorous relationship, polyamory, multiple loves, you can be in love with multiple people at the same time. So the example here is, this is my wife, her boyfriend, my boyfriend, and her girlfriend. Her husband will be joining us later. I'm gonna let that sit. I have no comment. I don't have any comment on any of this, okay? I'm just gonna say the words, and you can feel how you want to feel about what I'm saying. You know, when my dad was my age, he could go into the job market and he'd work for the same company for 20, 30 years, and that would just be consistent. But now we're kind of living in an economic situation where things are more transactional and quick. And sometimes you got to be working multiple jobs at once. I don't know why I'm telling you that story. I just thought, you know, it just came to mind. Here's another example for you. We finally decided we were in a relationship with Alice and Bob. And why stop there? So we were in a relationship with Alice and Bob. That's like at least 4 people. They're making sort of a polycule situation, it seems. And why stop there? You know, maybe 5, maybe 6, maybe 7 in the polycule. How many can we fit in the polycule? That's what I'm wondering. Moving on to unicorn polyamory over here, we got my husband allows me to have another girlfriend, but I am not allowed to have another man. So in polyamorous circles, a unicorn is a woman that a heterosexual couple seeks out to join them as a throuple. It's often seen as very patriarchal and male-centered, because obviously the straight dude is wanting to bang 2 chicks simultaneously and justify it with some mumbo-jumbo polyamory nonsense. It's called a unicorn because couples that are doing this are unicorn hunting. There's very few women who are willing to be that third. Basically because you're acknowledging that you're going to be playing second fiddle to the main chick that you're entering the relationship with. Here's another example of unicorn polyamory. You can only be my girlfriend if you agree to be my husband's girlfriend too. So again, we have a unicorn situation, heterosexual couple plus woman. Very difficult to achieve this. And in left-wing polyamory circles, this is seen as super fucked up and weird. However, right-wingers also practice polyamory. They just don't call it polyamory. An Andrew Tate type is running this kind of system, and it works, and you can have multiple chicks as a man. This is much more of the hierarchical, patriarchal kind of polyamory, which is polyamory, even though the people who are practicing this stuff would never call it polyamory, because that's associated with being queer and cringe and left-wing. What do they call it? I don't know, like rappers will call it like having hoes. The unicorn polyamory situation is very interesting, actually, because it aligns very well with religious polyamory / polygamy. Religious polygamy is almost always a situation where one man has multiple women. At least in the Western context, there may have been some indigenous cultures that had multiple men per one woman, but this is mostly what we see today in terms of religious polyamory or polygamy. It's one guy with a lot of chicks. And the unicorn polyamory is sort of like intimating towards that power dynamic. So the crossover between unicorn polyamory and religious polygamy is we are looking for a third to help open our chakras and bring us to a higher spiritual realm. Obviously, a cult leader is sort of they have a woman and they're trying to get another woman, basically, to include in their harem. And then some examples of straight-up religious polygamy. My husband died as his brother, Oman. It is your duty to give me a baby. As the leader of this cult, I mean radical new religion of truth, I get a harem. I now pronounce you man and sister wife. You get the idea. Moving on, we have polyfidelity. Polyfidelity is contained within polyamory, but it's a closed loop. So basically, you're not letting anyone new into your polycule. This does avoid the exponential risk of sexually transmitted diseases when you're doing stuff like this. The example here is I'm bisexual, so I have one of each. Basically, you have a man and a woman, and you're loyal to both of those people. The polycule is not open for applications in this world. So polyfidelity crossing over with unicorn polyamory is we are looking for a third to complete our family. Which is to say, if you went unicorn hunting and you found that unicorn, you three would lock in with each other and you guys wouldn't sleep with anyone else, which is, again, a great deal for the unicorn, the woman going into this heterosexual couple, being a third fiddle, just to please this guy's fantasy of being able to fuck two chicks, basically. Because she can then never have sex with anyone else ever again.
Okay, moving on to swinging. Feels kind of like an old-timey word for your grandparents. You know, this is like the polyamory your grandparents practiced. Soft swinging is we like swing clubs and public sex, but only have sex with each other. So, you know, you go to the sex club, but when rubber meets the road, so to speak, you guys are still just having sex with each other. That's why it's soft swinging. I imagine that the other swingers don't appreciate this kind of behavior very much if you keep showing up and just gawking at them. But hey, maybe they like it. I don't know. Art Chad Brogan, he once told me a story of some of his friends who were swingers. And then they were at this swinger party, and everyone there was so kind of horrific and ugly, and they just realized that they had no desire to sleep with other people. Like, they thought they did, but then when they were actually at the swinger party, they're like, I don't want this anymore. And they just went home and never tried it again. So, you know, it was good they got it out of their system. Or maybe they just needed a hotter swingers party. This is the problem, is that there's like I assume there's some sort of hierarchy to polyamory where all the baseline polyamorous situations you can get yourself into is like 5 ugly guys and a mid woman. But somewhere along there, everyone's hot, and I'm just not sure when that is. Then, of course, we just got regular swinging. My wife and I like to hook up at raves. Simple enough, right? You're just at a rave, what happens, happens, and then you go home and everything's back to normal. And then, of course, we've got closed group swinging, which is when you just have like one other couple that you guys hook up with, and that's it. So you minimize the possibilities of sexually transmitted diseases happening by keeping it closed, very similar to polyfidelity. But the fact that you have to even think about this in the first place might be a sign that God's telling you that you're going to hell.
Moving on, we have my personal favorite form of non-monogamy, cheating. Some people would expand the cheating bubble to include all of non-monogamy, but I wouldn't even suggest that. This is really what I mean when I say I've been polyamorous for 9 years. The example here is my husband, the senator, is not having relations with his secretary. And then coming off of cheating, we have dating around. Dating around is that phase in a relationship when you guys haven't said, hey, are we boyfriend-girlfriend? That's my favorite phase of a relationship, because then you can cheat, but they can't say that you were cheating because I never specifically said we weren't exclusive. Never said we were either. Moving on here, we have the polymono relationships. This is when a polyamorous person is dating a monogamous person. They're in a relationship with a monogamous person. And I'm going to warn you ahead of time here, this is the most psychically damaging part of the chart. So maybe even skip over this entirely, depending on how sensitive you are. I've literally never given a trigger warning until now, but this is a deeply sad section of the chart. So I don't even know if I should say this, but many years ago or so, you know, I was polyamorous and dating a monogamous person, and I was very clear that I was polyamorous the whole time, and so I thought that was fine. It was fine that I was dating a monogamous person because she knew I was polyamorous, and I knew she was monogamous, and we still wanted to continue the relationship, right? So that's fine, that's ethical. And I found out at some point that she was part of this Facebook group called
Polymono Support Group,
where it's these monogamous people who are dating polyamorous people. And holy fuck, those posts were sad. That was some of the saddest shit I'd ever seen. It's like, man, my girlfriend just came back, and I knew she was with another guy, and I know that's she can't help it. She's polyamorous, but it really hurts me, and I really want this relationship to work, so I just keep putting up with the agony over and over again. And in some polymono relationships, they start off monogamous, and then it's like the girlfriend or the boyfriend, they come out as gay. It's like they kind of like, oh, I came out as gay. I just realized this about myself. I'm polyamorous. right? I just realized I'm polyamorous. And then this monogamous person is stuck being like, well, I want to be supportive. Polyamory is just like, it's like a sexuality. It's like being gay, right? So I don't want to be a bigot by saying that I'm going to break up with you because of this. And they just grit their teeth and put up with it. That's what happens. They grit their teeth and put up with it. So when this overlaps with full cheating instead of just this kind of like contractual manipulation that you get with the sort of polymono situations, then you get, no, seriously, we're a polymono couple. My wife just doesn't know. Objectively, one of the scummiest ways to play this hand. A polymono relationship plus an open relationship equals, yes, Mr. Hefner, I'd love to be part of your harem. Wow, nice mansion. So basically, you're agreeing to be, you're monogamous, you're agreeing to be with Hugh Hefner, who has a harem, who's polyamorous, in an open relationship sort of style where you guys don't love each other, but you're getting something out of it. I would say that even overlaps with commerce a little bit, right? It's a form of prostitution. There's a red pill philosophy that says all sex is a form of prostitution because you're giving something to the woman to get the sex. And that this is like an accentuation of that philosophy, I think. Moving on to don't ask, don't tell. This is named after an army policy, whereas if someone's gay, you just don't ask them about it and they don't tell you about it, and it kind of is fine because you're just sort of ignoring the problem. This is very common in like married couples where the husband will just disappear for a week and the wife won't ask questions. Don't tell me about it, don't bring him home, don't fall in love. Those are pretty much the rules of don't ask, don't tell. As long as I don't know about it and it doesn't affect me in any way, you go do whatever you want, and I won't think about it. I've had relationships like this. That's all I'll say. Do you like knowing about my relationship history on this channel? You like that? You want to know more? You want a little you like that piece of my soul I'm feeding into the machine? You like that? Don't ask, don't tell overlapping with commerce is I see the credit card bills, don't need to know anymore. So basically the wife in this situation is looking at the guy who's gone out and hired a lot of prostitutes. She sees the bills. She doesn't feel the need to bring this up to him. She's like, okay, I see what's going on here. Ultimately decides either not to care or it's not worth talking about. Okay, moving on, kind of an outgrowth of cheating. We have 100-mile rule. That means if you're 100 miles away from your partner, you can do whatever you want. The distance kind of makes it a little more okay. So if you're like a traveling musician, we're monogamous, except when he's on the road. Obviously, you're gonna hook up with groupies. I mean, you're gonna be a famous musician and not hook up with groupies? I feel like the 100-mile rule is sort of a whisper of a bygone time. Because it used to be, yeah, you would go to a completely different city and you'd hook up with someone. Your partner's never gonna find out about that anyway. So it's not a big deal. Now on the internet, everyone is connected to everybody all of the time. And we're kind of like operating more and more like a singular organism with immediate shared information between all the different nodes. So it's a lot harder to do that, basically. I mean, this is just a disaster nowadays. But I think sometimes people still do this.
When the 100-mile rule overlaps with don't ask, don't tell, we have when my husband's on deployment, we can fool around. Another heartbreaking phrase. But yes, the old I go off into war and my wife gets railed. 100-mile rule overlapping with cheating. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. There's consex, which is just sex at conventions. There's not much to say about that. And last but not least, we have BDSM play and Dom's non-monogamy, which I'm skipping entirely because that's icky and non-valid. And I don't care. I don't care about that one. Vanilla sex for me, please. One vanilla sex coming right up. Okay, it would be a shame to completely ignore BDSM. BDSM is a huge part of the non-monogamy circles. Very well-respected researcher in the field, Ayala, who I worked with, says that BDSM is kind of like the third sexuality, gay, straight, BDSM. Although she might also say that like pedophilia is the fourth or something. Well, class, wasn't that a great chart? Doesn't that make you feel good about the future and the world? You know, we talk about such dour, depressing topics around this channel. I thought I'd liven it up with love. You know, that's the thing about love, is there's always more to give. And monogamous, heteronormative society has really made us believe that we can only love one person at a time. But your heart's so much bigger than that. And sometimes that's all you can get, fellas. Hey, if it's three ugly guys and you're one of the ugly guys, at least you get to touch a woman. At least you get to say you have a girlfriend, right? And if you're better than that, if you're like a solid 8 and you're looking to just monogamously date an 8, are you a millionaire, perhaps? Do you have $1 million? Because if not, maybe you should get your money up. Maybe you should get your money up and get 3 chicks instead, because that's on the table now. You can get 3 chicks. So if you want to just, if you just wanted 1 chick before, maybe you should want 3. Ever think about that? Maybe you should go for 3. Yeah. I think this is a good development for society.